When we think about kings and queens, we imagine gold crowns, long banquets, and rooms filled with silk and music. We imagine freedom, comfort, and power. But when the doors close at night and the palace grows quiet, another world begins. A world of strict rules. A world where even sleep is not simple. Did you know that some monarchs were not allowed to choose when to go to bed, or that others could not close their bedroom door? In France, a king once had dozens of people watching him prepare for sleep. In Britain, a queen never slept without a guard close by. And in Japan, ancient emperors followed spiritual rituals before resting, as if the night itself required permission. These are not fairy tales. They are recorded by royal historians and biographers who studied palace life for decades. Behind the velvet curtains, bedtime was often a ceremony. Sometimes it was charming, sometimes it was lonely, and sometimes it was deeply serious. Tonight, we will walk softly through palace halls and discover 15 strange bedtime rules every monarch had to follow. Some will surprise you, some may make you smile, and a few may change how you see royal life forever. Let us begin with something that sounds simple, yet was not simple at all. For many European monarchs, bedtime was not private, it was public. In the court of Louis XVI, the Sun King of France, the act of going to bed was a grand event called the coucher. Courtiers gathered in his chamber. Nobles stood in careful order. Only the highest-ranking person could hand the king his nightshirt. This was not kindness, it was politics. Imagine preparing to sleep while dozens of eyes watch you. Imagine knowing that every move you make sends a message. The historian Saint Simon wrote detailed accounts of these ceremonies. They were about control. By allowing nobles into his bedroom at night, Louis XVI reminded them that their power depended on him. Sleep became a stage. And yet, this was only the beginning. In Britain, centuries later, privacy still came second to security. Queen Victoria followed strict nightly routines. According to her letters and journals, she always locked certain doors, but guards remained stationed nearby. After several assassination attempts during her reign, safety became part of bedtime. Can you imagine living with that constant awareness? Even in the quiet of night, the crown remained heavy. Perhaps this makes us wonder, is true rest possible when one carries a nation on their shoulders? If you find these small details fascinating, you may wish to subscribe and stay with us on this journey. There is much more hidden behind palace walls. And if you have memories of watching royal ceremonies on television in your youth, feel free to share them in the comments. These stories connect generations. Now let us move east, to Japan. For centuries, Japanese emperors followed Shinto purification rituals before sleep. The emperor was believed to be connected to the divine. Cleanliness was spiritual, not only physical. According to traditional practice, certain prayers were said at night to maintain harmony with the gods. This was not about luxury, it was about duty. Even the direction of the bed could matter. In some periods of Japanese history, sleeping in a north-south position was avoided as it was linked to funeral customs. Small choices carried deep meaning. Across the world, in Russia, royal bedtime could feel cold and formal. Peter the Great changed many traditions, but he kept strict discipline in his daily life. He often woke before dawn and expected others to do the same. Reports suggest he disliked laziness and valued strength. If a monarch rose early, the court rose early, which means bedtime came with pressure. Oversleeping was not an option. But not all rules were about control or religion. Some were about image. In the court of Marie Antoinette, bedtime fashion became a quiet display of status. Her night garments were fine, delicate, and carefully chosen. Even in private, appearance mattered. Servants assisted her as she changed, following etiquette that had existed for generations. One might ask, Did she ever wish to dress herself without ceremony? Royal life often meant never being truly alone, and yet there were moments of tenderness. In Britain, King George III preferred simple habits. He valued family time in the evening. Before his illness worsened, he would spend calm hours reading or speaking with his children. His bedtime was less grand than those of earlier monarchs. Still, even simplicity required structure. Let us pause here for a moment. What does bedtime mean to most of us? A time of comfort, a time to remove the weight of the day. For monarchs, however, bedtime often marked the transfer of responsibility. Guards took position, lamps were lowered carefully, staff remained on alert. Even the candles mattered. In earlier centuries, fire was a constant danger in large palaces. Strict rules governed how many candles could burn at night. Servants checked rooms again and again. A single mistake could destroy a royal residence. Consider Henry VIII. After surviving injuries and health struggles, he became cautious. Heavy doors were barred. Trusted attendants slept nearby. Food tasters were common in his court, even late in the evening, due to fear of poison. Fear often followed power. If you are enjoying these quiet glimpses into royal nights, consider subscribing so you do not miss the remaining stories. There are still deeper secrets ahead. And if any of these customs surprise you, tell us which one stands out most. Now let us step into Spain. In the court of the Spanish Habsburgs, strict Catholic practice shaped the night. Evening prayers were formal. Confession was regular. Royal chaplains sometimes visited before important events. Sleep was placed in God's hands. This was especially true during times of illness. Monarchs often slept in semi-public settings when near death, surrounded by clergy and advisors. Privacy faded completely at life's end. Strange, is it not? The same room that once held power now held vulnerability. Travel added another layer of rules. When monarchs journeyed between palaces, portable beds were prepared in advance. Detailed records show how staff measured rooms and arranged furniture to match familiar patterns. Change was unsettling. Even kings sought routine. In the Ottoman Empire, sultans faced their own restrictions. The palace at Topkapi held layers of guarded rooms. The sultan's sleeping chamber was protected by eunuchs and selected guards. Access was tightly controlled. Movement at night required permission. Trust was rare. Across Europe and Asia, one truth remains clear. A monarch's bedtime was never only about rest. It was about symbolism, protection, faith, and power. And yet, within all these rules, there were human hearts. There were tired eyes. There were quiet thoughts in the darkness. In Denmark, Christian IX of Denmark, known as the father-in-law of Europe, maintained modest habits compared to grander courts. Family gatherings in the evening were warm, but even he followed precise schedules set by royal protocol. Time itself obeyed the crown. As we continue, you may begin to see a pattern. The higher the crown, the fewer simple freedoms remained, but the next rules grow even more unusual. As we return to the quiet corridors of royal life, we begin to see that bedtime was not only about comfort or safety, it was also about control over the body and the mind. Monarchs were expected to rise strong, appear calm, and show no weakness. Night was the only time when cracks could show, so rules grew tighter. In Britain, the evening routine of Queen Elizabeth II was known for its precision. According to royal biographers, she preferred to retire around the same hour each night. A warm bath was drawn. A simple nightdress was laid out. Her private secretary often delivered official documents in a red box, even late in the evening. Work did not fully stop. The state followed her to her bedside. Is it possible to fully rest when papers wait on the table? Reports say she sometimes read until late, yet even reading was not random. Security staff checked the room. Windows were secured. Guards walked the grounds. The monarch slept, but the palace remained awake. In earlier centuries, food before bed carried risk. Poison was a real fear. In the court of Catherine de' Medici, trusted servants handled every meal. Tasters sampled dishes hours before they reached her chamber. Even a late cup of wine required careful watch. Historians note that fear of hidden enemies shaped court life deeply. Imagine sipping water while wondering who prepared it. Some monarchs followed strange sleeping positions. In certain European courts, it was believed that lying flat on the back symbolized death, so rulers avoided that posture. Superstition mixed with faith. Small gestures carried meaning. Across the sea in China, emperors of the Qing dynasty slept in carefully chosen chambers within the Forbidden City. Kangxi Emperor was known for discipline and long hours of study. Even at night, attendants waited nearby. The emperor did not wander freely. Movement within the palace was recorded. Silence was expected. How different this is from ordinary life, where one may walk to the kitchen without notice. If these stories stir your curiosity, you may wish to subscribe and continue exploring royal history with us. Many viewers tell us these quiet details bring the past closer to the heart. And if you remember reading about any of these rulers years ago, share your thoughts below. History feels warmer when discussed together. Now let us look at another rule, one that may seem surprising. Many monarchs did not sleep beside their spouses every night. Royal marriages were often political. Separate bedrooms were common. In Britain, separate chambers remained tradition for generations. Even in the 20th century, senior royals often had their own sleeping quarters. This was not always about distance, it was about schedule, duty, and custom. For example, Prince Philip reportedly maintained his own study and sleeping space at times, especially during busy periods. Quiet independence was valued. Personal rest supported public strength, but separation could also feel lonely. In Austria, Empress Elizabeth of Austria, often called Sisi, struggled with court life. She valued privacy deeply. Reports from her attendants describe her strict nightly routines. Her hair, famously long, required hours of care even before rest. She guarded her chambers and disliked intrusion. What happens when a sensitive heart lives inside a strict palace? Security rules could be severe. After the execution of Charles I of England in 1649, monarchs across Europe became more cautious. The image of a king facing death shook royal families. Bedchambers were reinforced. Loyal guards were chosen carefully. Keys were controlled. Trust narrowed. Night became a reminder of danger. In Russia, the Romanov family followed precise evening prayers. Nicholas II of Russia often read scripture with his family before bed. Diaries from the imperial household show moments of quiet unity, yet outside the palace walls, unrest grew. Even peaceful rituals could not stop history. Does routine bring comfort when the world shifts? Let us move to another curious detail. Temperature mattered greatly. Before modern heating, royal bedrooms could be cold and damp. Heavy curtains surrounded beds. Some monarchs insisted on specific fabrics to protect against drafts. Servants warmed sheets with heated pans. These tools carried embers carefully, though they posed risk of fire. Imagine the smell of warm linen on a winter night inside a stone palace. In France, following the chaos of revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte kept a military rhythm. He slept little. Reports suggest he could rest almost anywhere, even on campaign. Yet when in palace rooms, guards stood watch outside. His schedule was unpredictable. He might rise at midnight to dictate letters. Power rarely sleeps long. If you are finding meaning in these contrasts between strength and vulnerability, consider joining our growing community by subscribing. Many viewers say these calm journeys into history bring reflection during quiet evenings. And please tell us, Which monarch's routine feels most surprising to you so far? Now we enter a deeper layer. Some monarchs believed dreams carried messages. In medieval courts, royal advisors sometimes interpreted troubling dreams. Night visions were discussed carefully. A nightmare could influence a decision. While this may seem distant from modern thinking, faith shaped many choices in earlier centuries. For instance, during the Tudor period, dreams were often seen as signs. Though records are limited, scholars note that symbolic thinking filled daily life. A restless night might lead to prayer at dawn. Would you feel burdened if every dream held meaning? Another rule concerned illness. When monarchs were unwell, physicians sometimes slept in nearby rooms. Privacy faded. In the final days of rulers, witnesses gathered. This was not only for care, but for proof. Succession had to be clear. There could be no doubt about the moment of passing. In 1901, when Queen Victoria approached her final hours, family members were present. Clergy prayed softly. Her bedroom became a place of transition. The world outside waited for news. The bed of a monarch could become a stage once again, but for farewell. Silence at night could also bring reflection. King George VI, who guided Britain during war, carried heavy responsibility. According to accounts, he valued steady routines. Evening calm helped him manage stress. The voice that once struggled with a stammer spoke firmly in public, yet at night he was simply a husband and father. This contrast reminds us of something simple. Beneath crowns are human beings. Before we move to the final part of our journey, consider this. Bedtime rules were not random. They reflected fear, faith, politics, and personality. Some were gentle customs, others were shaped by tragedy. And still, 5 more secrets remain. The deepest ones. The ones that reveal not just how monarchs slept, but how they faced the darkness within and around them. We have walked through candlelit halls and silent corridors. We have seen kings watched as they undressed, queens guarded as they slept, emperors who prayed before closing their eyes. Yet the final bedtime rules are the most revealing. They show not only power, but also fear, love, and the fragile nature of human life. One rule may surprise you. Many monarchs did not choose their final bedroom. In old Europe, it was common for rulers to move to a formal state bedchamber when death seemed near. This room was grand, often used for ceremonies. Heavy curtains framed the bed. Religious symbols stood close. The reason was simple: witnesses were needed. Advisors, heirs, clergy, and doctors gathered to confirm the passing of a sovereign. In 1715, when Louis XVI lay dying, courtiers filled the palace at Versailles. His final days were documented carefully. Even weakness became public record. A monarch's last sleep was not private. It belonged to history. Does that thought feel heavy, to know that even your final breath would be observed? Another rule concerned light. Darkness in royal chambers was rarely complete. A small lamp or candle often burned through the night. This was partly for safety, partly for comfort. In eras without electric light, total darkness could feel uncertain. Guards needed to see. Attendants needed to respond quickly. In Britain, records from the household of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, describe careful night security. Doors were checked more than once, corridors were monitored. Even in the peaceful 20th century, caution remained. Sleep, for a monarch, always had watchers. Now consider travel once more. When rulers stayed in country estates or foreign palaces, strict inspection came first. Beds were examined for safety. In some centuries, hidden weapons were feared inside mattresses or bed frames. Servants shook out linens thoroughly. Windows were studied. Escape routes were planned. Power created enemies. And enemies often struck at night. In the Ottoman court, The Sultan's chamber was part of a protected inner circle. Sulayman the Magnificent ruled during a golden age, yet even he followed layers of protection. Trusted guards stood close. Access to his sleeping area was limited to a small group. The palace was beautiful, but it was also a fortress. Would you feel safe inside walls built to protect you, or trapped by them? Another strange custom involved waking rituals. For some monarchs, the act of waking was as formal as going to bed. In France, the lever mirrored the coucher. Nobles entered in ranked order as the king rose. The bed became a throne of sorts. Even the first moment of morning carried political meaning. Imagine not opening your eyes freely, but as part of a ceremony. In more recent times, routines softened, yet structure remained. King Charles III is known for precise habits. According to reports from royal correspondence, his schedule is steady. Letters are answered late into the evening. Documents are reviewed before sleep. The day rarely ends without reflection on duty. Responsibility does not close with the bedroom door. Now, we reach a more personal rule. Many monarchs kept small objects near their beds. These items were private comforts. A photograph, a book of prayer, a letter from a loved one. Such details rarely appear in official portraits, yet they appear in memoirs and biographies. When Queen Elizabeth II travelled, she reportedly carried personal photographs and familiar items to make each room feel known. Continuity brought calm. In changing spaces, small objects created stability. Have you ever taken a favourite item with you on a journey, simply to sleep better? Even monarchs needed that quiet reassurance. Another rule involved silence. Palaces at night followed strict quiet hours. Footsteps were softened. Conversations were hushed. Staff moved carefully. Sound carried easily through stone halls. Disturbing a sovereign's rest could be seen as serious failure. Yet outside those walls, cities often remained restless. In times of unrest, distant noise could reach royal ears. During the French Revolution, for example, crowds marched through Paris. The royal family at the Tuileries Palace could not ignore the tension beyond their windows. Night brought anxiety instead of peace. Power can isolate, but it cannot block every sound. In earlier centuries, astrologers sometimes advised rulers on favourable times for rest or important decisions. While not every monarch believed in such guidance, astrology influenced many courts. Sleep and destiny were sometimes linked in the minds of advisors. Today, this may seem distant, yet it reminds us how deeply people once connected the stars to daily life. We now arrive at the final and perhaps most meaningful rule. No matter how strict the ceremony, how guarded the chamber, how grand the bed, every monarch faced the same human truth. They had to close their eyes alone. Crowns could not follow into dreams. Guards could not enter the private world of thought. Titles faded in the darkness. In 1952, when King George VI passed away quietly in his sleep, he was not surrounded by ceremony. He died at Sandringham, in familiar surroundings. His passing was calm. A king, yet also a father and husband, resting at last. There is something gentle in that image. As we reflect on these 15 bedtime rules, we see more than strange customs. We see the weight of leadership. We see fear shaped by history. We see faith carried into the night. We see the careful dance between privacy and duty. Monarchs lived in rooms filled with gold and velvet, yet many longed for simple quiet. Some found comfort in prayer, some in routine, some in family voices nearby, and some perhaps stared into darkness, wondering about tomorrow. For viewers who have lived long lives, who have seen leaders rise and fall, these stories may feel familiar in a quiet way. Titles change, times change, but the need for rest, safety, and peace remains constant. As evening comes for each of us, We close our doors without ceremony. No court watches, no guards stand at attention. There is a deep blessing in that simplicity. And yet, understanding these royal bedtime rules brings us closer to history. It reminds us that behind every grand portrait was a human being preparing for sleep, removing heavy robes, saying private prayers, holding small worries. Perhaps tonight, as you prepare for bed, you may think of these quiet palace rooms, of candles glowing softly, of distant footsteps in long corridors, of kings and queens who, despite all power, still needed rest. History often shows us crowns and battles, but sometimes the most revealing truths appear in the silent hours before sleep. Thank you for walking through these hidden moments of royal life. May your own nights be peaceful, private, and free from the weight of a crown.